Welcome to the viewers of Federal. I'm K.S. Dakshinamurthy. We are today joined by two important people at the moment. Important fundamentally because they're very senior journalists. And secondly, they are based in London. And as all of us know, London and the UK, are just now in the thick of news. We've had a dramatic resignation of the Prime Minister, Liz Truss, just after 45 days of, being a Prime Minister. It's a record of sorts, and, whether it's a positive one or a negative one, let's look at it. So our guest, the first guest is Ms. Sajida Momin, who is a contributor for the Federal, a very senior journalist. She's based in London and she's been reporting on this. And we have Mr. Manivannan, a very senior journalist, a former BBC correspondent. And he's also based in London. Right now, he's home in India, for a short stay. So we thought, the best way to get our audience in India some kind of a clarity as to what's happening in the UK by picking the brains and the experience of Sajida and Mani. And so here we go. Sajida, so what's happening and what's going to happen next? I mean, after this dramatic resignation.
Right. Well, it's a very, very exciting time at the moment in politics in England. Things are moving extremely fast. This morning, we've had Boris Johnson come back from Dominican Republic from his holiday. And as you know, there's now going to be a election within the party to decide who the new leader is going to be. And initially, it was expected that there would be maybe two or three people who would, two or three contenders. The main contender, of course, is our very own Rishi Sunak, who has already announced that he has got 100 MPs backing him. So definitely on the ballot paper, Rishi Sunak should be there. The second person who has announced their candidature for the leadership is Penny Mordaunt. But Penny actually has so far only got 22 supporters. And the third and the very interesting candidate is Boris Johnson, who Liz Truss ousted literally 6 weeks ago and took over from him. And now Boris wants to come in for round number 2. Boris so far has only managed to get 52 people to back him, 52 MPs to back him. But I'm sure that over the weekend, they've got until Monday 2 o'clock to manage to get 100 MPs backing them. If they manage to get 100 MPs backing them, then they will be put onto the ballot on Monday. And on Monday, there will be 2 rounds of voting by the parliamentary party. So it'll be the MPs who will decide between the 2 candidates who are going to be, between the 3 candidates who will be the 2 finalists, if there are 3 candidates on that day. But that all depends on who manages to get 100 members of parliament to back them.
Right. Mani, there is though the English system is very similar to the Indian system, still there is a lot of, there's some kind of a confusion as to how this is actually happening. That within the party you have, there's a pressure on the Prime Minister to step down, and the Prime Minister steps down. So what is the process now? Why did it happen? And the next few weeks, how is the new Prime Minister going to get elected?
I think part of that has already been answered by Sajida, that there is an internal process within the Conservative Party, which will run until Monday if there are only 2 candidates. The 2 candidates' names will be, basically passed on to the voters. I mean, Conservative Party members who form the Electoral College. They are about 160 to 170,000 active subscription-paying members. This is the internal party constitution of the Conservative Party, through which the party leader is elected. This is not it's not part of any UK's constitutional procedure. For instance, Labour Party adopts a similar but it's a slightly different process to elect its leader. Basically, it's all about the workings of the internal, the party's internal democratic mechanism, which is strange for our audiences in India, because in India, the party leadership elections are held, you know how. They are completely different. So the process is all about how the parties are organized in UK. It's not about UK's law. So next week, Monday, by 2 p.m. the candidates will have to present themselves with the minimum required sponsors. That's 100 MPs. This is again a new procedure adopted by the so-called 1922 committee of the Conservative Party, which is in charge of electing leaders. Earlier, it was not the election by which Liz Truss was chosen did not follow this procedure, because at that point of time there were about, if my memory serves me right, there were about 8 candidates. So the 100 MP signature requirement wasn't there at that time. So now, because they want to quickly elect a leader within a space of 7 days, they want to eliminate such a wide field. They want out of the 357 MPs, those who get a minimum of 100 MPs to sign and sponsor them, only they will be allowed to stand. So the process will end by 2 p.m. on Monday. If there is only one candidate with 100 signatures, that candidate's name will not go to the wider ballot of the Conservative Party members. But obviously, there will be more than one. So the party members will have a role. That election, again, has been kind of compressed and shrunk. The election will be an online election, and it will complete by Friday next. So you will have the news of who is succeeding Liz Truss by Friday latest next week. That's how the process will pan out.
Okay. There's a lot of excitement in India, at the prospect of Rishi Sunak again, rising from the, ashes, so to speak. So, how did this happen? I mean, what is it that makes him such a front runner?
I don't think, it's easy to call him a front runner at this stage, because Conservative Party is it's kind of split vertically on ideological line, the far right groupings and the centrist grouping. So Rishi Sunak, he through his economic policies he pursued as a chancellor, is now the favorite of a significant section of the Conservative Party's members of Parliament, because they think the need of the hour is following sound economic policies, re-establishing the trust and credibility of the British economy, and facing the current economic crisis, including the cost of living crisis, and the energy crisis, etc., etc. So they think somebody who is economically numerate or economically literate is the person who should be given this top job. And they think, under the circumstances, Rishi Sunak fits the bill. Obviously, this is not only about economics, this is also about politics. There is the circumstances in which Boris Johnson was ousted has made Rishi Sunak a kind of a hate figure among the substantial followers of Boris Johnson. So Boris Johnson is still, in spite of his peccadillos and flaws and disastrous political maneuvers, he's still a charismatic leader and also appeals to the grassroots Conservative Party members. And they still think he's a vote winner in spite of whatever he had done. So Boris Johnson enjoys enormous clout in deciding or in shaping the outcome of the election. if I may correct, he was not ousted by Liz Truss. He actually maneuvered to get Liz Truss elected. It was with his tacit support, Liz Truss was elected as prime minister, mainly to prevent and to thwart the possibility of Rishi Sunak emerging victorious. Because Boris Johnson really thought, Rishi Sunak had stabbed him in the back by resigning first and triggering the wave of resignations a couple of months ago when the crisis started. So he has no love lost for Rishi Sunak, and he would not like Rishi Sunak to win again. So even this election and this time, Boris Johnson, whether he contests or not, he will. You can rest assured he will try his hardest to ensure Rishi Sunak doesn't succeed him. Doesn't get elected as prime minister. So it's an interesting scenario in that context. As for Rishi Sunak, he is, as I told you, he has been seen and perceived as a safe pair of hands for handling the economy. But he has no big political mass appeal, and the Conservative rank and file do not really like him because they think the Conservative rank and file are still in the thrall of Boris Johnson, and they do not think that they should vote for somebody who has been instrumental in the downfall of Boris Johnson.
Right. Thank
you.
So
it will be an interesting thing to see.
Right. Yeah. Sajida, what's your view on this?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Mr. Manivannan to a large extent. I think the Rishi Sunak did very well to actually get in the last election, in the last race. He actually did very well getting to be number 2. I do agree with him. I think that he has a lot of support among the members of parliament, but he doesn't have the support in the grassroots and the paid up members of the Conservative Party. I think when it comes to the paid up members, they are predominantly all these 160,000 or 170,000 paid up voters. They are all predominantly middle-aged, white, male, middle income, middle England, and a lot of them in the southwest and the south of the country. They are, I mean, to be very blunt, they don't want to see a brown man as the prime minister of their country. Yeah. They want a white person, and Liz Truss was actually elected as the leader by them. She was second to Rishi Sunak when it came to the first round of the contest, where Rishi Sunak was leading. At the same time, I think the same thing is going to happen here. He may have more MPs voting for him, because a lot of the MPs are very unhappy with both Boris, so they don't necessarily want him there. But at the same time, if this vote goes to the members of the Conservative Party, it will end up that either Boris, if he decides to stand and he is the second candidate, then Boris will come through. And if it is Penny Mordaunt, then Penny Mordaunt will come through. I think Rishi needs to now accept that this is as far as he's going to get, if it is going to be a straight out vote from within the Conservative Party. It might be a different thing altogether if it is a general election.
Right.
I think he has a lot more support from the public in general than he does from within the Conservative Party members.
Right. India, there is in fact, I think you also mentioned that in your writing, about this immigration issue, and whether it's, specifically to do with India, or is it the larger immigration issue that one of the key ministers in the with Liz, she, I think, Suella Braverman, if I'm not mistaken,
Suella Braverman,
she resigned, and there was a link between her stand on the immigration issue and her resignation. So does India come in anyway here in this?
It certainly, in terms of Suella Braverman's resignation, I think India and the free trade deal played a very big part. in her resignation, because as far as her resignation is concerned, she and Liz Truss were not on the same page. Liz Truss wanted to go ahead with the free trade deal with India, and India wants a more liberalized open borders migration policy. And Suella Braverman is very much on the hard right of the Conservative Party. And the hard right wants a break on immigration. I mean, when it comes to Brexit, the whole thing behind Brexit was about immigration. They wanted to stop more and more immigrants coming in. Now, of course, the argument there was that it is the European immigrants that we want to stop. That was what Brexit would do. But actually, when it came to the rest of the Conservative Party or Conservative Party voters, for them, it wasn't just European immigration. It is actually immigration full stop. They feel that there are too many immigrants. And of course, Indians, South Asians are very visible now in Britain as compared to maybe 10 years ago or 15, 20 years ago even. There is a very, very large contingent of South Asians there. And if you come into London, I think you sometimes feel that you've stepped into India or Pakistan or Bangladesh. You know, there's just so many Indians there. And the Brits actually feel that it's the brown population is taking over. And so it's immigration. But again, immigration for the British, they need a certain amount of immigrants. They have these problems with things like the NHS and social workers and care, etc. But there has got to be, they have to weigh up who they want to allow in and who they don't want to allow in.
Right. So, Mani, what do you feel on this? I mean, these issues, other than the fact that Sunak is brown Indian, of Indian origin and all that.
I think, yes, there were differences over the trade deal with India between the Prime Minister Liz Truss and Suella Braverman. And of course, Suella represents the far right wing's views on immigration in general. The point I would like to differ from Sajida is whether this actually marked a point where they had to part ways. That's not very clear for me as an observer. Even in her resignation letter, it was not stated anywhere, or even in media, it was not widely speculated. It was there in some sections of the Indian media, but I didn't see much about it in British media. Of course, I don't believe that the email issue was the trigger for the resignation. I don't believe that. Obviously, there were deeper reasons. But it's whether Indian immigration was a reason, I'm not able to, conclude very, decisively. I'm not sure about that. The general point is, yes, conservatives especially the rank and file, have a lot of worries about immigration in general. It's not only about, Eastern European immigration. The Brexit was all about Eastern European immigration. It fundamentally affected the blue-collared English worker, because you have the small English town, and you have the English plumber who charges you 25 pounds for a call-out rate. But the Polish plumber would come in, and then check your plumbing, sort it out, and then ask for 20 pounds, including the call-out charge. So the Eastern European workers, whether they are plumbers or electricians or painters or whoever, those kind of skilled trades, they were a direct competition to the English blue-collared worker. So that actually hit the English constituency very, very badly. They're a conservative constituency very badly, which is why Brexit was all about Eastern European immigration. As for whether the same kind of resentment is there against Indian immigrants, and whether Indian immigration has reached such a level as to become a potentially politically explosive issue in Britain, I am not sure at all. Because Indian immigrants are different class and character. They come in as professional, skilled people, doctors, nurses, etc., engineers, software. So it's very difficult to see, where the Indian immigrant is seen as a direct threat to the English worker.
Right.
In fact, there's a feeling that if the Indians, withdraw from from Britain, the NHS would suffer from even further, more dangerous staff shortage.
Right.
So, at a political level, I'm not sure whether the Indian immigration is a major issue. So I'm not 100% confident of that.
Right.
I'd just like to add, Dakshin,
Yeah.
to what Mr. Mani is saying, that the reason why some people in the press, and also I feel that Suella Braverman's argument with Liz was very strongly about immigration and the FTA is, if you go back to her interview that she gave to the Spectator just before the party annual conference, where she actually pointed out that Brexit was not about opening up borders. Brexit was about Britain taking control of the borders. And when it comes to Indians, she actually made a statement which was very explosive. And she said, Indians are the biggest group of overstayers of visas. Now that's for her to say something like that to a right-wing Spectator magazine, it's a big thing.
Yes, that interview was definitely widely, noticed even in British media, not only in Indian media. But my point is about her resignation here. If the interview was an issue, even at that point of time, Liz Truss could have taken action and sacked her or moved her to a different portfolio, which she didn't do.
No, Liz Truss has not been in a position to go around sacking people as easily as she would like to, because she's had so much turmoil in her own cabinet, just trying to bring some sort of stability to her cabinet. She had to sack Kwasi because there was so much resentment towards the mini budget. I mean, it was palpable. It was from everybody across within her government, as well as across the board within the country. I mean, everyone was, and of course the pound crashed, the markets crashed. There was just like overall, everything came tumbling down.
Sajida, that's why I'm saying, because Kwasi Kwarteng's mini budget caused such a turmoil. Even though he was a very close ideological ally and friend of Liz, she had no option but to sack him. But Suella Braverman's, provocative utterances on Indian immigration was not such an issue.
So, in India, there is one opinion, or there's one set of people who are exulting in the fact that India seems to be far more stable in terms of its democracy than the UK. But there is another view, which is that we must look at the accountability factor. And, the level of accountability in UK politics is so high that is something that we need to learn. So what is the lesson you think that we as Indians need to look at from what is happening in the UK? Mr. Mani, I think you can go with it.
Right. So I'll start with the premise that many people think confuse stability with as a kind of positive factor. Stability of what? Stability of government, stability of the chief executive of the government. That if that is the case, then China or Russia or any of those one-party dictatorships, they're also stable. So political stability is one thing. Whether what that stability does to the society, people in general, with stability is only a tool to achieve something larger, for the good of the society. So if you keep that in mind, political instability in UK is only a recent phenomenon. I would say from 2016 onwards, Brexit started this chain of events. There has been a political churning, and we have seen, so from 16 onwards, we have seen 3 prime ministers come and go. This will be the 4th, whoever comes in. So political instability is there because of this huge ideological warfare, about identity, about globalization, and a host of other factors. You must remember, United Kingdom, in spite of the fact that it's a Western country and following generally a capitalistic economic model, is not exactly a full-fledged capitalist state, at least not from 1947 onwards, though, not from Clement Attlee's prime ministership onwards. It's a more a model liberal welfare state. You have the NHS providing for free health service, national health service at the point of delivery. You have free education up to the secondary level, and even university higher education, in spite of Margaret Thatcher's economic policies, are largely funded by loans, government loans, which are really generous and are not really enforced very well. So you have old age pension, which is a massive thing. You have other state benefits like free housing, etc., which are not to be seen in a really capitalist society like USA. So you have a semi-capitalist, semi-socialist, even I would dare say, economy, society, suddenly waking up to the reality of the government being taken over by free market fundamentalists. So that is what the thing that caused political tremors in UK and caused her downfall. In India, you need to look at it from that perspective. If India has also been following a similar semi-capitalist, semi-socialist path for the past 30 years at least, from 1947 to 1991, it has been almost nearly a socialist, self-controlled economy Raj. But from 1990s onwards, it has globalization and economic reforms have changed India, but we are not yet a fully fledged capitalist state. So, but the last 8 years under Mr. Modi have seen further liberalization and further turns towards the right of the economic agenda, which can cause this policy shift can cause problems to the wider sections of the society. But of course, this will not have the kind of political turmoil that has happened in UK will not necessarily happen in India, because India is a different society. Because changes happen very slowly, and you also have social agenda of the current government, which is completely endorsed by a large section of the North Indian population. So I don't foresee a similar political instability in India. But we need to draw the lessons. That is, you can't suddenly swerve from an economic model you have been pursuing, like which is inclusive growth, taking care of the vulnerable, taking care of the poorer and marginalized sections of the people, to completely throwing them to the markets. That would be really, really undesirable, and that might cause problems. That is the lesson you need to learn.
Right. Thank you, Mani. Thank you so much. Ms. Sajida, what's your?
I think Mr. Mani has given us a very detailed explanation of what India can't do or can do. I think in terms of politics, more than that, I think what India should learn about democracy is that what we are seeing in Britain today is democracy at work in the real sense, that if a leader makes a mistake, he is accountable for that mistake. When it comes to somebody like Boris Johnson, who was forced to step down because he had broken the rules that he had set, and then he was found to have broken them. And therefore, he was forced to step down by his members of parliament, by his very own MPs. Same thing with Liz Truss. Liz Truss did not provide the economic solutions that the country needed, which is what made her mini budget implode. And that was what made her step down. And I think, somewhere I was reading today that one way that Boris can come back into getting into number 10 for the second time is by saying sorry. If he says sorry for everything that he has done until now, he may have some sort of support from the rest of the country. I mean, there's a very, very large section of the British public as well as British MPs who are saying, no way, Boris, how can you, after everything that you have done, after the way you've lied to us, how can you now expect to walk straight back into your old job in less than just under 7 weeks, not even 2 months? You can't come back in without having paid the price. And he's under investigation. And there is an inquiry going on about him having lied to Parliament. I think these things is what makes Britain that much more mature a democracy. And if anything that India can learn from all this, I think India should learn that. That is a lesson that they need to learn.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sajida and Mani. I think it was a pleasure, talking to you, and also extremely enlightening. And I think this is going to be very useful for our viewers who will tune in onto this our interview. And thank you so much. And if there's any more further explosions that happen, political explosions, so we are again going to call you. So thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more interesting updates.